Failure is part of the process. Every market, there is a different approach. Don't let stereotypes or doubts hold you back. Strategy helps you identify the opportunities, but relationships are actually what make it happen.
I honestly think resilience looks different for women.
We are more empathic, we are good listeners, so men are often assumed to be capable from the start, while women has to prove themselves more than once.
I don't really think even a great strategy will survive long without building a strong partnership or relationship.
I think in this industry, reputation and trust travel very fast. It's not something that happens overnight because not every lead turns to a deal.
It sits right in the middle, middle of logic and emotion, numbers.
When men are ambitious, they are seen as strong leaders. But when women are ambitious, they can be labeled as difficult.
Hi everyone and welcome to another season of Peach Marathon Podcast, the show where we meet innovators from the iGaming world and hear their stories straight from the source. This season, titled Pretty Serious, is dedicated to Women's Month and to the brilliant women moving this industry forward. Today I'm joined by Isabella Lorenzini, Business Development Executive at Alea, who is here to share her insights. Isabella, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy to be here and excited to have this conversation.
Well, let's start from the beginning. When did you first enter iGaming and what made you want to stay longer?
So I entered in the iGaming about 5 years ago when I moved to Malta. And in the beginning, what really caught my attention was how dynamic and fast moving it is. So not 2 days are the same. It's a very dynamic industry with new markets, new regulations. You're always learning, meeting new people, connecting with new cultures. So I think that was really got me interested and keep me excited about working in this field.
I always love hearing that because iGaming has this way of pulling people in unexpectedly. And once you're in the phase, the people, the energy tend to keep you there. And in business development, especially, relationships are everything. Thinking back to those early days, relationship must have played a big role in business development. What's the most important lesson you've learned about building trust in this industry?
I think the trust comes with consistency, right? So it's not built in one meeting or one deal. So I think it's built when people see that you're following through, that you communicate, that you commit to that, and that you are reliable and even when things don't go as expected. So I think long-term partnership is everything, is the key.
Yeah, such a great point. Because from outside business development role, it can look kind of social, fun, and even almost effortless. But everyone who's done it knows there is a lot happening beneath the surface, building that trust, even if in some cases, friendship that lasts longer beyond your current company and your current role. From the outside, it can often look quite simple, but what's the part of business development that people outside the role usually underestimate?
I think people underestimate the complexity and how you have to be strategic. So it's not just about selling or closing deals. So it involves strategy. You have to do your research about your competitors. You have to build long-term partnerships. So you have to build the trust to maintain these connections. It's not something that happens overnight, right? So it requires patience, communication, and even emotion intelligence. So I think a good business development, they need to understand like the trends, the regulation, potential clients. So it might seem simple, but there is a whole strategy behind. And it's always like about shaping the direction of the company, right? So sometimes you have to open new markets, create new opportunities, and you also have to be flexible. And I think you have to understand that every client is different. That is their own needs and demands and scenarios. And to understand as well, the failure is part of the process because not every lead turns to a deal.
Also, in my experience, the best deals rarely happen because someone's just pitched well. There's actually a lot more nuances behind them, and that naturally brings us to negotiations. I'm curious to know, was there a negotiation lesson you learned that completely changed the way you approach deals?
So I think the main lesson is to understand the client. So every market, every country, every culture has his own way to approach business. So for example, Latin America, it's very important to build friendship and partnership even before start discussing about the deal, right? And other countries, people might be more direct and more straight to the point, straight to the business. So I think having this ability to adapt and understand that every market there is a different approach. So this is the key to adapting and understand your client.
I love that because negotiations really reveal what kind of business person someone is, how they think, how they listen, how they handle pressure. And to be honest, it's all about the ability to be an intellectual listener. It's about patience, silence, and even, as you said, knowing when to walk away. So, if we zoom out for a moment, what do you think success in business development is more about strategy or about people?
That's a very good question. I think both are important. Strategy helps you identify the opportunities, but relationships are actually what make it happen. And I think in this industry, reputation and trust travel very fast. So I think if I need to choose one, I would say people.
Yeah, that's exactly why business development is such an interesting space. And to be honest, I don't really think even a great strategy will survive long without building a strong partnership or relationship. It sits right in the middle, how to say, middle of logic and emotion, numbers, and people, even the structure and instinct. And since this season is dedicated to Women's Month, I want to bring that lens into the conversation too. From your own experience, do you think women approach leadership building or negotiations different in this industry?
In many cases, I would say yes. I think woman brings a very strong emotion intelligence to the table. So that can be translated to better listening, better understanding, and sometimes even more a friendly approach to negotiations.
Yeah, there's actually no single way to lead, negotiate, or build relationships, not necessarily better or worse, just we do it differently. But patterns actually do show up. And since you've worked with many women across this industry, what's something you've noticed about how they navigate challenges?
Well, I'm not saying these qualities are exclusive to women, but because of our social and cultural experiences, I think women tend to develop more strong emotion intelligence. Like I mentioned before, we normally adapt very easily. We have this emotional strength. We are more empathic. We are good listeners. So I think we are very good to read emotion as well, which helps resolving difficult situations, I would say. Women also bring multi-dimension perspective to the problems. We have this ability to see in different angles. So I think that helps a lot.
Isabella, I don't know if you would agree, but I honestly think resilience looks different for women, and sometimes like those strengths develop precisely because women are still navigating certain expectations that aren't always openly discussed. If we go a bit deeper into that, what's one double standard women in this industry still deal with that people don't talk about enough?
So I think one double standards I often notice, it's around competence and ambition. So men are often assumed to be capable from the start, while women has to prove themselves more than once. Regarding the ambition, I think we can also perceive differently. When men are ambitions, they are seen as a strong leaders. But when women are ambitions, they can be labeled as difficult or too demanding. So I think this small difference in perceptions may seem subtle, but can create extra challenge for a woman.
Yeah, and that's where it gets especially interesting because those double standards they don't always come in obvious ways. Sometimes they are subtle, cultural, or just deeply normalized. I think women are still judged differently for the same behavior men are praised, as you said, for such as being direct, ambitious, assertive.
Well, I would love to see more diversity and leadership overall. So, not just gender diversity, but backgrounds and perspective. So, I think that leads to a better decision and a more diverse environment in the companies.
Yeah, because that's also a part of culture, and the culture that we shape today will lead everything tomorrow. How people rise, how decisions are made, and who gets heard, which leads perfectly into the bigger picture version of that question. If more women held real decision making power in iGaming tomorrow, what do you think would actually change first?
Well, I think having more women in leadership will be a big difference because, as I mentioned before, woman brings more multi-dimension perspective. We don't consider only the results, but we also are concerned with customer diversity, social impact, long-term strategy and partnerships. So I think we lead with more empathy and collaboration. We are very good listeners. So I think women bring this creativity and resilience that you mentioned before, which is key in this fast changing industry, such as the iGaming. And I think also having more women in leadership can help reduce the double standards that we're speaking before. So you can create more like a fair environment.
I love that because it shifts the conversation away from symbolism and into actual impact. And before we wrap up, I want to close on something practical for the people listening, especially the women who are just entering this space now. For the next generation coming into the industry, especially women who want to grow into leadership roles, what's one honest piece of advice you would give to them?
Well, I think my advice will be build your network. So this industry is very relationship driven. So connections matter. I think you need to be confident in your abilities. Don't be afraid to take risks and show initiative, build a strong network. And also don't let stereotypes or doubts hold you back.
Thank you so much, Isabella. Thank you for joining us today and for sharing your insights and stories from the front line of iGaming.
Thank you so much for having me here. It was a pleasure to have this conversation. It was very nice. Thank you.
To everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves a good industry story or just someone who likes hearing smart people talk. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and of course, keep pitching.